Hello again, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Prophet Easy One. The reason I named the channel the Prophet Easy One is because Ezekiel chapter 1 is one of the greatest revelations that the Lamb has given to me. And I see all over the internet, all over everywhere, in churches, people do not understand it because it was an enigma that was sealed until the last days. And I don't want to get into a bunch of stuff from Revelation showing how it was revealed to me. I just want to reveal it to you. All right, now, this is there's so much misunderstandings all over. You know, people think that Ezekiel chapter 1 is describing the throne room of God, as they call it, or it's describing flying saucers, alien spacecraft. There are no alien spacecraft. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go through this. I'm going to start at verse 4 and go through the entire chapter. And I think that this time I'm going to break it down verse by verse as I go. And I beg you to stay with me and to hear this so that you can see a secret that has been kept for 2,600 years. It's probably the world's oldest enigma, and now you're going to see it solved right before your face. All right, now Ezekiel's having this vision. This is after the captivity. Let me go on with what he says here. In verse 4, Ezekiel chapter 1. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. If you see in some other versions of the Bible, it even makes it plainer as to what it actually is. And what it is that Ezekiel's seeing here is this whirlwind coming out of the north is the tail plume, the smoke from a nuclear missile. And it's going to look like a whirlwind, a great cloud. And then he says, what he sees is a great cloud with fire enfolding itself, and brightness was about it. And out of the midst thereof was the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. That's a nuclear explosion. A great cloud with fire enfolding itself and radiating out was the color of amber. And there was a brightness around it. It's a nuclear explosion. All right. Let me go on with this. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Now, any time in prophecy where you see where it says likeness, it doesn't mean it's that thing. You know, it's just kind of being compared to that thing, a likeness of it. So what he's seeing out of the midst thereof. So he's seeing this great cloud, and out of it comes a likeness of 4 living creatures. And they had the likeness of a man. What Ezekiel's seeing, he's looking up in his vision now, and he's seeing jets coming. And they have the likeness of a man because of the body and the wings. Is kind of like a stick figure. You know, the body, the arms, and the legs. It says, and everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. And we're going to cover that as we go on here. It says, and their feet, now, Ezekiel's going to see these things that appeared to be living creatures because they were moving. He's going to see them sitting on the tarmac. And he says, and their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkle like the color of burnished brass. What he's seeing now here is the landing gear That's the straight feet. If you look in other versions of the Bible, some of these things can be made clearer than what the King James shows, but I do prefer the King James. Um, says that they sparkle like the color of burnished brass. In other versions, they mention a different metal, but that's the landing gear, and it's very shiny, like burnished brass. And here's the word like again. Oftentimes in the scriptures, when it's saying like, it doesn't mean it's that thing. It means that it's like that thing in some way. He says, and the soles of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. Now with a calf, you can take your fingernail and push into the hoof, and it'll give an indentation. You can't do that with a full-grown cow. Their hooves have become too hard. And this is the same thing as with a high-pressure jet tire. You can take your thumb and it'll give an indentation. This is why it's like a calf's foot. It says, and they had hands of a man under their wings on their four sides, and they four had their faces and wings. Now the hands of a man that Ezekiel's describing here is the ailerons. You know, he's seeing these like I say, like the stick figure of a man, and these ailerons are like a man's hands. Okay, keep in mind about that word like. And it says, their wings were joined one to another, and everyone turned not when they went. Everyone went straight forward. Now he's seeing these jets flying in formation. Like you may have seen the Thunderbirds, or you know, the Navy equivalent of them, where when they're flying in formation, it looks like their wings are touching. That's why it's saying here that their wings were joined one to another. Keep in mind, this is a vision he's having 2,600 years ago, and jets didn't exist. And I'll tell you what, if you'll search through the scriptures, you'll see that King David had seen these things too. It gives a description of some things about him, but we're not going to get into that now for the sake of brevity. It says, and again it says they had, well, let's go on. As for the likeness of their faces, they four had the face of a man. Ezekiel seeing the pilot of each jet, the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side. He's looking into a jet turbine engine. He's seeing the propeller blades, how they curve around like the mane of a lion. So it's giving the appearance of a lion. It says they four had the face of an ox. Now that's what that is. It's you may have seen it, especially on some helicopters, but it was popular on jets at one point, and I'm sure they're still out there. It's a large electronic telescope, well, a round electronic telescope with two lenses that come out of it. One is an infrared electronic lens, and the other one's a regular electronic lens. And these things are powerful. I mean, look at what the satellites can do down here to Google Earth now. I mean, these things, like I say in my other video, they were shooting down planes in the Middle East that they couldn't even get on radar because you can pick them up with these super powerful electronic telescopes. It says, and they four had the face of an eagle. Now that's the nose cone of the jet. He's describing it like the face of an eagle. It's kind of like the beak coming up. All right. So thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. Two wings of every one were joined one to another, and two covered their bodies. What he's seeing here is the tail wings, because they're very close. They look like they're joined to one another. And the other two wings covered their bodies. That's the two main wings used to fly. It says, and they went everyone straight forward, whether the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned not when they went. These jets are on a mission of war. They're going straight to their objective. They're not turning. They're going to take care of their missions. And as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. Now, he's describing, what he's seeing here is the jet engines. Oh, I wish I knew how to like download pictures and videos to put on here to show you some of this stuff, but he sees it, when you're looking into the back of one of those engines as they're flying, it looks like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of lamps, it says. And now it says that they went back and forth among the living creatures. This is going back and forth among people. This is a war. It says the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. Because from where these engines are is where these missiles generally hang. And that's the lightning that he's seeing coming out from there. That's the lightning coming forth. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. This is wartime, people. And these jets aren't worried about breaking the speed of sound. They're going at Mach 2 or more. You know, these things are going flat out because this is a war, like a nuclear war. You got to get in there. It's like Pearl Harbor. You got to get in there quickly. And I'll tell you, if you're doing twice the speed of sound, you're going to go a mile in about 2 seconds. Make just a hair over 2 seconds to go a mile. That's like a flash of lightning. These things would be tearing off across the sky. It says now he's going to see them sitting on the ground. Now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth of the living creatures with its 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their workings was like unto the color of beryl. Now he's talking about the wheels and their workings, okay, are like the color of beryl, which is aluminum in color. And all 4 of the wheels had the same likeness. And their appearance and their work was as it were in a wheel in the middle of a wheel. You know, all these people try to describe this as flying saucers, and they'll show a wheel sideways inside of another wheel and all this crazy stuff. No. What he's seeing is the disc brake inside the wheel. That's the workings. The wheel in the middle of the wheel. And when they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. Now what he's saying about these wheels here is that they'll go in any direction, but they don't turn. What's turning the jet is that front wheel. That's what guides them all. And yet the other wheels, like it says, they went upon their 4 sides, meaning any direction, but they didn't turn when they went. It's because the other wheel is the one leading them all. As for their rings, now some versions of the Bible use the word rims here, which is more accurate. As for their rims, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about the 4 of them. Now what Ezekiel's seeing in this vision is the lug nuts of the wheels. He's describing them as full of eyes all around about the 4 of them. You know, they didn't have nuts and bolts back 2,600 years ago in Ezekiel's time, and keep in mind, this was sealed until the end times. No man was ever able to figure this out. I tried many times. Every time I'd be reading through the Bible, I'd get to where I'd get to this, and I'd try to think about it. I'd try to draw it out on pieces of paper. It was impossible until the Lamb that was slain before the foundation of the world was found worthy to open the scroll, which is this book, and to loose the 7 seals. And I want you to know, the 7 seals have been loosed. All right, now. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. So in other words, when these jets are going, the wheels are going with them too. And when the jets come up, the wheels come up too. I mean, that's only natural. It says, whithersoever the Spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of living creatures was in the wheels. Now, he's saying that the wheels were lifted up over against them. He's seeing these jets going up and the wheels going up, and now the landing gear is coming up over against the planes. And when those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, The wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of living creatures was in the wheels. So in other words, when the jets are moving, the wheels are going. When they go up, the wheels go up. And the landing gear comes in. And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was as the color of the terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads. What Ezekiel's seeing now, he's seeing the canopy, which is this awesome crystal, a firmament. The heavens are described as a firmament. The sea is described as a firmament. The things that you can see through. And this is an awesome crystal stretched out over their heads. This is the canopy of the jets. And under the firmament were their wings straight, the one toward the other. And every one had two which covered on this side, and every one had two which covered on that side of their body. So beneath where the cockpit is, there's two wings on each side of the body. You got your two big wings that make you fly, and your two other ones in the back that also help fly and stabilize the jet. It says, and when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, as a voice of speech, and the noise of a host, that's an army. When they stood, they let down their wings. So now he's hearing them as they're going. These things are loud, like rushing waters. I don't know if you've been whitewater canoeing, but I'll tell you what, when you're coming up, when that whitewater's around the corner, you can't even see it, but you know it's there because you hear it. Or an army, when they're attacking, they're yelling, or the voice of the Almighty. It says, but when they stood, they let down their wings, saying that when they stopped, those loud engines, they got quiet, or they shut down. It says, and there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads when they stood and let down their wings. Now, here's another thing about letting down their wings. When a jet's flying, the weight of the jet is in the fuselage, and the wings are creating lift, and they actually flex. So those wings come up, but when the jet stops, those wings settle back down. All right, now, it says there was a voice from the firmament. What is that? Let's find out. Now, Ezekiel's seeing him sitting here on the tarmac, and he's going to see the radar control tower behind the jet. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man above it. So he's seeing this radar control tower behind the jet, describing it, the appearance as of a throne, with a light, that's the light that they have up there, and a man upon it. And later in Ezekiel, he describes seeing 3 or 4 men in there. That's where that voice is coming from, to the firmament, to the canopy, to the pilot. And now he's going to look into the cockpit in this vision.